The range of light. It seems not clothed with light, but wholly composed of it, like the wall of some celestial city. After years of wandering and wondering in the heart of the Sierras, rejoicing in its glorious floods of light, the white beams of the morning streaming through the passes, the noonday radiance on the crystal rocks, the flush of the alpenglow, and the irised spray of countless waterfalls, it still seems above all others the range of light.
My name is John Muir. You can call me John of the Mountains. It was 100 years ago I met a young fellow named Stephen Mather, right here in Sequoia National Park. Sometimes historians say that I didn't meet him at all, but sometimes historians are wrong. And even if we never met while we were alive, I'm sure we would have met in the afterlife, because for both of us, this place was our idea of heaven. Come along then, I'll show you.
Hello there. Did you see a fella that looked like John Muir come through here? If you did, it was John Muir. I know, it's hard to believe. Whew. I was supposed to meet him here right about now. I'm a little bit late. Whew, I got lost in time. August 10th, 1925. It was my daughter's 19th birthday. We were in Glacier National Park. Well, the Great Northern Railroad was building a hotel there, and they had built a sawmill to accomplish the task. Well, I told the fella in charge that I wanted that sawmill out of there by a certain date. Well, when the time was up, I found that he had not removed the sawmill. He said he needed a little bit more lumber. So I told him, I will give you until my daughter's 19th birthday. And that was that. So I happened to be there in the park on my daughter's 19th birthday, August 10th, 1925, and lo and behold, the sawmill was still there as well. Well, I talked to that fella, and he said, oh, we just need a little bit more time, a little bit more lumber. I said, no problem. So, went outside, and I got some helpers together, and then I invited everybody from the hotel to come outside with me. And then, I lit the fuse to the first of 10 charges of dynamite set underneath the sawmill. Boom! 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 Well, With every charge going off, I felt a little bit more at ease. When I got to the 5th one, somebody asked me my motivation, and I said, just celebrating my daughter's 19th birthday. It's the little things that we remember. Well, I better try to catch up with Mr. Muir. If you see him again, let him know that I was here. Oh, watch this.
Thy glad tidings to hear.
Glad tidings of the mountains. That sounds familiar.
Oh, hello, friend. Ooh, wow, beautiful day, isn't it? Magnificent. Oh, I believe I must have set a new speed record in my ascent to the giant forest. A very vigorously marched hike.
Well, then, in my opinion, young man, you have failed. People ought to saunter in the mountains, not hike in them. Do you know the origin of the word saunter? It's a beautiful word. Way back in the Middle Ages, people would go on pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and when others in the villages which they passed through would ask where they were headed, they would reply, "A la Sainte Terre," or to the Holy Land. So they became known as Sainte Terre-ers, or saunterers. Now these mountains are our Holy Land, and we ought to saunter through them reverently, not hike through them.
I like your thinking. I'll make sure to saunter on my next hike. Whew, I wouldn't be dizzy from the altitude now if I had. Mind if I have a seat and rest a moment?
Be my guest.
Nice to have some time off work.
What do you do?
I'm a salesman. Borax, the miracle mineral. What does it do? I'm glad you asked. What doesn't it do? Well, it's a water softener. It's an aid for the female complexion. 100 uses around the house. My boss gave me no budget for my first ad campaign, so I wrote letters in a matronly hand and sent it off to the ladies' magazine citing uses for borax. 20 Mule Team Borax brand. That was my idea. I'm an idea man. Well, there used to be a mine for the stuff out there in Death Valley. Whew, at a place the Indians called Ground Fire. The heat was so intense, no vehicles could withstand it. So they used these giant wagons to transport the stuff. They had 7-foot-high wheels, could carry 12 tons of borax, and they were pulled by 20 mule teams. 20 Mule Team Borax.
Are you trying to sell me borax right now, son?
Oh, no, sir. Sorry. I know I do. Go on. So quiet here.
When one is alone at night in the depths of these woods, the stillness is both awful and sublime. Every leaf seems to speak.
Anybody ever tell you you bear a striking resemblance to John Muir?
I get that all the time.
Stephen Mather.
Oh, pleased to meet you, Mr. Mather. I am John Muir.
You're not joking, are you?
God's honest truth?
John of the Mountains? This is unbelievable. Oh, what an honor. You're one of my greatest heroes, sir. Well, you inspired me to join the Sierra Club. I was there in their 1905 assault on Mount Rainier, a magnificent adventure. Got me hooked on the conservation cause for life. Oh, if you don't mind me asking, what battle are you engaged in now? Or are you retired?
Oh, retired? Never. There's too much work to be done. Right now, one of nature's rarest and most precious mountain temples is in danger. Hetch Hetchy.
Hetch Hetchy, where's that?
It's about 20 miles above Yosemite. I call it the Tuolumne Yosemite, for it's a wonderfully exact counterpart of the Merced Yosemite. Sublime rocks and waterfalls, Glorious gardens, groves and meadows, all on a flowery park-like floor.
What threatens it?
Well, fools, mostly. San Francisco wants its water. They want to put a dam there. I say damn hetchy, as well damn for water tanks the people's churches and cathedrals, for no holier temple has ever been consecrated by the heart of man.
I think I read about that in the papers. They say the water would have helped the city with the big fire.
Hogwash. They also say the dam will do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. I say rather it will do the greatest good for a few men's wallets. When will they learn that everybody needs beauty as well as bread? Places to play in and pray in where nature may heal and cheer and give strength to body and soul alike. Nevertheless, I suppose, as with anything else worthwhile, from the very beginning they are subject to attack by despoiling gain-seekers and mischief-makers of every degree, from Satan to senators.
You hear about this new scam where private interests are taking over sequoia groves under the Swampland Act? Because the trees stand in soggy ground each spring when the snow melts, they say that the lands are substandard bogs. Can you imagine?
Ridiculous. No doubt these trees would make good lumber after passing through a mill, as George Washington, after passing through the hands of a French cook, would have made good food. But luckily for Mr. Washington and the tree that bears his name, higher uses have been found. Do you hear that? The mountains are calling. Let's go.
You call that sauntering? Have you ever been to Coney Island?
No, can't say as I have.
Well, I went there one time in the summertime with a friend. We wandered amongst the concessions. We took a little rifle practice and we tested out our throwing arms and we tried to ring the bell with a swing of the sledgehammer. Oh, the carnival barkers were there shouting and screaming and pointing. Woo, don't be shy, step right up. Winner, chicken dinner, win yourself a Cupid doll. Oh, there were these bright lights flashing and crazy music blasting out. And there were bells ringing and whistles whistling. Whew. Well, my friend and I finally found a little peace and quiet down by the ocean. And as we listened to those waves coming in nice and gently, I looked back over the boardwalk and I said, now that is exactly what we don't need in the national parks. Now, a lot of people may like it, and if they do, they should be able to get it, but not in the national parks. Someone ought to protect and keep the national parks as much like God made them as possible.
Maybe someone like you.
Oh, me? No. I have enough pressure just being a borax salesman. Sometimes the pressure gets to be too much and I have to get away for a while. Well, my mother was the same way when I was young. She had to go away when she got nervous, and then one day she went away and didn't come back at all. Well, I like to get out in nature because it soothes my mind and my soul. I love these places and I know they'll always be here for me.
Well, here's the thing. They might not always be here for you if you're not here for them. You've got to get in the fight, Stephen. These places need you maybe even more than you need them. The Sanger Lumber Company owns nearly all the groves of the Kings River, and they have been spreading destruction for many years without any advantage.
I found a scattered growth of big trees extending across the main divide to within a short distance of Hyde's Mill, on a tributary of Dry Creek. The mountain ridge on the south side of the stream was covered from base to summit with a most superb growth of big trees. What a picture it made! Every tree seemed perfect in beauty and strength, their majestic domed heads like a range of upswelling cumulus clouds on a calm sky. In this glorious forest, the mill was busy, forming a sore, sad symptom of destruction. Only the smaller and most accessible of the trees were being cut. The logs from 3 to 10 or 12 feet in diameter were dragged or rolled with long strings of oxen into a chute and sent flying down the steep mountainside to the mill flat, where the largest of them were blasted into manageable dimensions for the saws. And as the timber is very brash, by this blasting and careless felling of on uneven ground, 1/2 or 3/4 of the timber was wasted. Most of these trees will go on to become roof shingles and fence posts. Such a waste of the most noble creatures. Any fool can destroy trees. They cannot defend themselves or run away. And few destroyers of trees ever plant any. Nor can planting avail much toward restoring our grand aboriginal giants. It took more than 3,000 years to make some of the oldest of the sequoias. Trees that are still standing in perfect strength and beauty, waving and singing in the mighty forests of the Sierra. Through all the eventful centuries since Christ's time, and long before that, God has cared for these trees, saved them from drought, disease, avalanches, and 1,000 storms. But He cannot save them from sawmills and fools. This is left to the American people.
Do you want to be a hero, Stephen? Just come follow me. If you were waiting for a personal invitation, then now you've had it.
Boy, I didn't know when I set out this morning I'd receive a pep speech from my hero before nightfall. Boy, I wish my wife and daughter could have met you. Well, maybe this fortuitous event was meant just for me. John of the Mountains!
Hear that? Now the river's calling us. Let's go!
Do you have the time?
I sure do.
I mean, do you know what time it is?
Oh, no. I only went out for a walk, and I finally concluded to stay out till sundown. For going out, I found was really going in. Somebody's watching us from somewhere out there.
Who is it?
Don't know. How many hearts with warm red blood in them are beating under cover of the woods? How many teeth and eyes are shining? A multitude of animal people intimately related to us, but of whose lives we know almost nothing. They're as busy about their own affairs as we are about ours. And then there are the others out there, the ones like you and I, the two-legged, out there far and wide, rising before the crack of dawn, too excited to sleep, eager to begin their journeys. Thousands of tired, nerve-shaken, over-civilized people are beginning to find that going to the mountains is going home, that wilderness is a necessity. Mountain parks and reservations are useful not only as fountains of timber and irrigating rivers, but as fountains of life.
I sure love this place.
No pain here, no dull, empty hours, no fear of the past or fear of the future. Soon it will be time to rejoin the fight.
No disrespect, but don't you think you've done enough? Why don't you let some other men take up the banner of your cause?
Men like yourself?
I'm more than willing.
Well, come on then, keep up.
Wait a minute.
Where the heck are we? I'm not quite sure. Oops. Why should man value himself as more than a small part of the one great unit of creation? And what creature of all that the Lord has taken the pains to make is not essential to the completeness of that unit? The universe would be incomplete without man, but it would also be incomplete without the smallest transmicroscopic creature that dwells beyond our conceitful eyes and knowledge. From the dust of the earth, from the common elementary fund, the Creator has made Homo sapiens. From the same material he has made every other creature, however noxious and insignificant to us. They are earth-born companions and our fellow mortals. This star, our own good earth, made many a successful journey around the heavens ere man was made. And whole kingdoms of creatures enjoyed existence and returned to dust ere man appeared to claim them. After human beings have also played their part in creation's plan, they too may disappear without any general burning or extraordinary commotion whatever. The battle we have fought and are still fighting for the forests is part of the eternal conflict between right and wrong. We cannot expect to see the end of it. We must count on watching and striving for these trees, and we should always be glad whenever we find something so surely good and noble to strive for.
you need some help?
A little bit.
I'll make sure your hat doesn't fall. It's a shame to lose a good hat.
You know what these national parks really need are good roads, good food, and good beds. Scenery is a hollow enjoyment to a guest who sets out in the morning after an indigestible breakfast and a fitful sleep on an impossible bed. You know, I got a lot of great ideas for these national parks. I got half a mind to write a letter to the powers that be.
Well, don't have half a mind. Have a whole mind. Just do it.
Just do it. That's a great slogan. Mind if I use it?
Be my guest.
Just do it, just do it. Well, I'll write it down. Don't have my pen and paper. Well, I'll remember it. Just do it. And I did do it, folks.
Who are you talking to?
The people out there.
Oh, hello.
Well, I wrote that letter to Washington, and much to my surprise, I received a letter back from the Secretary of the Interior. And it read, "Dear Stephen, if you don't like the way the national parks are being run, why don't you come on down to Washington and run them yourself?" Somehow, some way, I ended up as director of the National Park Service for 14 years.
There's a plaque round here. Somewhere it says, "There will come no end to the good he has done."
That's a little embarrassing. I just followed my heart like you did. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years after we met, John Muir died on Christmas Eve. But he kept fighting to protect the parks until the very end. You know what's funny is John Muir died on Christmas Eve, and I was born on the 4th of July. Isn't that funny?
Well, it's not funny to me. You know, I never got to open my presents.
Funny interesting, I mean, not funny ha-ha. John Muir's last battle to protect Hetch Hetchy, the second Yosemite, ultimately failed, but that last battle got people excited to protect the other parks, and no dam was ever built in any of the other parks. You see, it was activism that made that happen by a single person. If you think about all the great things that have happened in America along the way, they were done by activists. If you think about Teddy Roosevelt, some people say he was a great president, but I say it was John Muir that got him to go out there and ditch his security and go camping. John Muir, a single person, an activist. And if you think about what happened to me when I wrote that letter, 14 years as director of the National Park Service, well, from what I've seen, communication is the miracle today, so let's use it.
Amen. You know, I was an inventor when I was younger, and I hear these days they've got an invention where you write something on your face, and instantly all of your friends can see what they wrote. And then they write it on their face, and all of their friends can see what you wrote.
That's remarkable. Folks, you got more power than you think. Just follow your heart like we did. Use your heart and your mind and your voices.
Aye.
And connect on that Facebook thing. Well, it's getting pretty late. I guess I better be getting back to my wife and daughter.
Well, it was a pleasure to meet you, Stephen.
Likewise.
Welcome to the fight. I expect to hear big things from you. You know, this is the first time we ever met. Any of us. But we were well connected before today. And we are never alone. You see, when you try to pick something out by itself, you find that it is bound fast by 1,000 invisible cords that cannot be broken to everything else in the universe.
Between every 2 pines is a doorway to a new world. Walk through.